Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to another Good Morning Grief Devotional. This is the Daily Grief Devotional that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural and normal response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. Grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is how you express it on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't conceal it, but we reveal it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And that's why we shout good morning, because morning is a good thing. And I'm so glad that you are here today as we did prepare to navigate through another grief devotion. Today's grief quote, it's a good one. It's a lengthy one, but it simply says, "It's so curious. One can resist tears and behave very well in the hardest hours of grief. But then someone makes you a friendly sign behind a window, or one notices that a flower that was in bud only yesterday has suddenly blossomed, or a letter slips from a drawer and everything collapses." Ooh, it's so curious. One can resist tears and behave very well in the hardest hours of grief, right? But then someone makes you a friendly sign behind a window. Or one notices that a flower that was in bud only yesterday has suddenly blossomed. Or a letter slips from a drawer and everything collapses. Just for a few minutes, y'all. Today is day 329. We're going to talk about take a moment to mourn. Take a moment to mourn. Do me a favor, drop that in the chat. Take a moment to mourn. Write that in the chat for me. Take a moment to mourn. Let's see what this is talking about. Short devotion today. We can be so surprisingly tender in our grief. We can be so surprisingly tender in our grief. The smallest, most harmless, everything, the smallest, most harmless, everyday thing can pierce our hearts like a needle. Y'all hear this? We can be so surprisingly tender in our grief. The smallest, most harmless, everyday thing can pierce our hearts like a needle. The smallest thing, right? I'm talking about. Have you ever seen like this? Like the quote said, "A flower blooming, a sign under a window." Um, the smallest thing can make everything collapse, right? I remember I've been like triggered by a song that come on the radio, a smell, right? There was a certain plug-in that my pops had at his crib. And so I was somewhere out in public and I smelt it, right? And just like, whoa, like, ooh, it sent me, right? The smallest thing, and it's like everything comes in a memory. You see something, you could see a piece of cherry pie, right? And it could send you, right? Because of what it means and the connection of that pie with the one loved one who died, whatever it is, right? And I'm pretty sure y'all got plenty of stories too. That it was something so simple, it was something so subtle, it was so simple, but it was so significant. And you seen it, or you heard it, or you smelled it, and it just sent you, right? It just sent you all the way in, because the smallest thing, it can send us, right? We can be so tender in our grief that the smallest, most harmless, everyday thing can pierce our hearts like a needle. It's because our hearts are wounded, right? They are injured, and the wounds are easily pained. When you're going through your season of grief, your heart is wounded. You are vulnerable. You are open. Your heart is wounded. You are hurting. You are in a season of pain. And the smallest thing, like it can pierce your heart like a needle, right? Hearing something, the laughter of a child when yours or your grandchild is gone, oh, it can pierce your heart like a needle, right? Uh, a child being disrespectful to their parent, and your parent is no longer here. Oh, it can pierce your heart like a needle. I mean, it's just there's so many different things because we're wounded. It seems like everything is magnified, right? It's like when you have one of your when your eyes when you don't have eyesight, your ears, your hearing is magnified, or if you can't hear, you see everything. Everything is magnified because of the disability or the impairment that you have. Same thing with grief. It's like everything is heightened because of the wound that you have, and we become so sensitive, and our grief is so tender, right? That even the smallest things begin to pierce our heart in an ongoing fashion, right? The surprising moments of pain, it calls us to attend to our grief. These surprising moments of pain, you know what it's doing? It's our grief calling us to tend to it. It's our grief beckoning us. It's our grief telling us to come here. I need you to tend to this, right? It lets us know that we're still in this thing called process. That's our grief telling us, I'm still here. Our grief says, I still need your attention. And this is why it's so important that when it comes to grief, it's something we can't ignore, it's something that we have to explore. And these moments and these times and these opportunities, these times of collapse, these times where it seems like things fall apart or things begin to unravel, that's just merely our grief telling us, yo, I'm still here. Hey, I need you to tend to me. Because for so many of us, for so long, we can suppress it and push it to the side, or we can push it down where we don't want to deal with it. And then something will trigger it. It'll make it come to light to let us know, yo, you still need to deal with this thing. I'm still here. I still need you to give it to attention. Still need you to give it some attention, which is why when it comes to grief, we can't ignore, we got to explore. You got to navigate through the process. You got to navigate through the journey, right? You have, and I know it can be hard, and I know sometimes you don't want to be bothered, but it's one of those things that we must continuously tend to, right? Check this out. Here's the final thought, y'all. When something simple pricks my heart with pain, I will know that I need to take a moment to mourn. When something simple pricks my heart with pain, I know that I need to take a moment to mourn. I want to encourage you to take a moment to mourn. Just take a moment to mourn. Have your moment. Feel and reveal. Take your moment to mourn. When something pricks your heart with pain, don't ignore that. Explore that. Don't suppress that. Express that. Take your moment to mourn. Right then, right there, take your moment to mourn. I will know that the pain is a signal for me to slow down and embrace my grief, right? I just seen a word picture. I just seen a picture. Sometimes, like when you're in the mall and your kids are small and you're walking, and they're lagging behind, and you like, come on, keep up, come on, or you got to grab their hand, and if you're holding their hand and walking, because your strides are longer than theirs, you kind of pulling them along. Sometimes you got to slow down a little bit because they can't walk as fast, right? Same thing applies with our grief. Sometimes we got to slow down because we got this thing that we're towing with us. And we can get into such a hurry and we can be doing this, that, and the other. We could be moving so fast that we forget we got this thing called grief that's attached to us that's tagging alongside of us. And every now and again, it lets us know, yo, you need to slow down. Yo, you moving too fast. Yo, you need to tend to me. Yo, I'm still here and you just can't move without me. And some of us try to move without it. Some of us try to navigate through our everyday life situations so without it. And that's not how you do it. You have to learn how to live with it. You got to learn how to navigate through this thing called life. You can't do it without. You got to do it. It's attached to you. It's a part of who you are. And you cannot ignore it, right? You got to explore. You got to consider it. That's why we're always talking about befriending your grief and embracing it, right? You can't ignore it, right? It's in tow, it's attached to you. So you got to slow down. You got to tend to your grief. You got to slow down and you have to take a moment to mourn. I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you as you continue to navigate through this thing called grief, as you navigate through this Saturday, as you navigate through your life, y'all. I'm rooting for you. I want you to make sure you pause for the cause, you take the moment to mourn, and let God have his way in the midst of your life. Yo, Pastor Corey Allen, I can sing. I love y'all with the love of the Lord. Hope you have a sensational Saturday. Remember, take a moment to mourn. Let's go.